The chamber was silent, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of fear, a silence that pressed against the heart and made every breath heavy. A dim blue glow came from the walls, shining against the smooth metal floor. Cold air wrapped around the place like an invisible chain, and in the middle of the room was a figure, small and fragile compared to the vast emptiness around her. The alien girl sat with her back against the wall, her wrists bound with glowing restraints that hummed with strange energy. Her skin carried a faint glow of its own, soft blue patterns that shifted whenever she moved even slightly. Her hair, silver like threads of light, fell across her shoulders, and partly hid her face, but her eyes, wide, trembling, and full of fear, remained fixed on the locked door across from her. She knew what they wanted from her. She had heard the whispers of the guards, the cruel laughter that slipped into the chamber when they thought she was too weak to listen. They had spoken of her as if she was nothing more than a tool, not a person, not a living being with thoughts and hopes, only something to be used. Her hands shook as she pulled against the restraints, but they did not move. They only tightened their grip, sending a sharp sting of energy into her skin. The silence stretched on, broken only by the faint hum of the machines hidden in the walls. It was as if the chamber itself was alive, watching her, reminding her that there was no escape. Her heart pounded, each beat louder than the last. She whispered to herself in her own alien tongue, words of comfort she barely believed. "Someone will come. Someone will save me," she murmured. Though her voice cracked, a loud clang echoed outside the chamber. The girl froze, her breath caught in her chest. The sound of boots, heavy and fast, rattled the metal floor. Voices shouted in a language she could not fully understand, deep and harsh. She recognized them, her captors. They were moving quickly, almost running. Something was happening, something unusual. The chamber door trembled as something exploded in the distance. The walls shook, dust falling from the ceiling. Her heart raced even faster now. Her captors had never moved like this, never shouted like this. For the first time, she felt their control slip. Even if just for a moment, she pressed her back harder against the wall, wishing she could disappear into it. Her eyes darted to the shadows in the corners of the chamber, afraid of what might come. A scream echoed faintly through the hall, then another. The sound of weapons fired, sharp blasts that made the air vibrate, echoed through the distance. The girl's lips trembled. Was this worse than before? Was something even more terrifying coming for her? The chamber lights flickered, plunging her into darkness for a few seconds before the glow returned. Her restraints pulsed with energy again, as if warning her not to move. Then the door shook. A deep impact rattled its frame. The girl gasped, pulling back as far as her chains would let her. Another strike, louder this time. Metal groaned and sparks flew at the edges. The air smelled of burning circuits. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She wanted to scream, but fear locked her throat. The door crashed inward, slamming against the wall with a screech. Smoke and sparks filled the air. A shadow stood in the doorway, tall and broad. For a moment, she thought it was another captor, another monster sent to drag her deeper into this nightmare. But then the shadow moved forward. The smoke cleared enough for her eyes to see. It was not one of them. This figure wore armor, but it was different. Bulkier, heavier, scratched from battle. A helmet covered his face, but the shape was clear. The figure was human. The girl's mouth opened in shock. She had heard of humans before, whispered tales that her people barely believed. They were supposed to be small compared to many alien races, but dangerous, unpredictable. She had never seen one with her own eyes. The human stepped into the chamber, weapon raised, scanning the room quickly before his gaze locked onto her. For a long second, they stared at each other. Her fear clashed with confusion, his presence filling the silence. The glowing restraints hummed between them like a cruel reminder. Finally, he moved closer. His voice came through the helmet, low but firm. "You're not safe here," he said. The alien girl's breath caught. The sound of his words was strange but clear. She did not understand why he was here or why he would care about her fate. Behind him, the hallway roared with more explosions. The human turned his head briefly, then looked back at her. "I don't have time to explain, but if you want to live, you're coming with me," he said. Her heart pounded wildly. Was this another trick? Was this just a dream before her end? But as he lifted his weapon toward the restraints and fired a short controlled burst, the glowing chain shattered into sparks. Her wrists fell free for the first time in days. She stared at her hands in disbelief, then up at him. The human reached out his hand toward her, his armor scratched and glowing with faint lights. "Trust me," he said. The silence of the chamber was broken at last. Not with fear this time, but with the sharp sound of destiny arriving. The chamber door still hissed with smoke, and the alien girl stared at the human who had freed her. Her wrists burned where the restraints had been, but the sudden taste of freedom was almost too strange to believe. For a moment she hesitated, her body trembling, unsure if she should move or remain still. The human's hand was still there, waiting, steady. She reached out, her slim fingers shaking, and touched his armored glove. It felt cold, heavy, but somehow it gave her strength. He pulled her to her feet, his movements strong yet careful. His visor glowed faintly, hiding his eyes, but she felt the intensity of his stare on her face. "Stay." "Close," he said in a low voice. His words carried command but also urgency. She nodded quickly, not trusting her voice to answer. Her legs wobbled as she tried to walk. Days of captivity had drained her. The human did not hesitate. He pulled her close and half-carried her toward the broken door. The corridor outside was chaos. Sparks rained from broken lights, alarms screamed across the ceiling, and shadows of rushing alien guards flashed across the walls. The girl gasped, clutching at the human's armor. She could hear them shouting in their cruel language, their footsteps pounding closer. The human pressed her against the wall, raising his weapon with swift precision. His armor creaked as he shifted, aiming into the smoke-filled passage. Suddenly a group of alien guards burst through the haze, tall and monstrous, their eyes glowing with rage. Their weapons glowed red. As they lifted them toward the pair, the alien girl's heart nearly stopped. She wanted to scream, to run, but she was frozen. The human stepped forward, his body shielding hers. His rifle barked with blinding light. Each shot ripped through the air, cutting down one guard, then another. Sparks exploded against the metal walls as alien fire returned. The girl pressed, her hands to her ears. The sound too much for her. But through the haze of terror she saw something unbelievable. The human did not retreat. He moved forward, calm but deadly, his weapon shifting with sharp skill. Every blast was precise, every movement controlled. He fought not like prey but like a predator. Within seconds, the corridor was silent again. Alien bodies lay scattered, smoke rising from their wounds. The girl stared at him, her mouth open in shock. She had seen her captors crush and destroy everything in their path, but this single human had stopped. Then with nothing but his weapon and his will, he turned back to her, his voice firm. "We don't have long, more are coming." She nodded quickly, her silver hair falling into her face. He lifted her again, carrying her with surprising ease. His armor clanked against hers, his steps fast and powerful. As they ran deeper into the corridor, the girl whispered, Why are you here?" Her voice shook. The human did not answer at first, his focus sharp. He turned a corner, his weapon raised, scanning every shadow. Only then did he speak, his tone low but steady. "Because someone had to stop them." She frowned, confused by his words. No one had ever cared before. No one had even tried to help. And yet here was this stranger, risking his life in a place he did not belong. For her, the corridor stretched on, doors flashing past them, alarms painting, the walls red. The girl's chest heaved as she tried to keep up, but her body weakened again. The human glanced at her, then without a word lifted her into his arms. She felt the weight of his armor, the strength of his muscles, and the strange warmth in his voice when he said, "Hold on." Her heart beat, faster not only from fear now, but from something she did not understand. They passed a shattered window where the outside world was visible. Through the crack, she saw the dark sky of her homeworld, filled with the glow of massive ships circling like vultures. Her people had given up long ago, broken by chains. But this human, just one, walked into the heart of her prison, and fought as if nothing could stop him. Behind them, more alien. Voices roared. Weapons fire lit up the corridor again. The human turned, firing back, his armor sparking as energy blasts struck near him. He did not slow down. Each step carried them forward. Each breath filled with determination. The girl buried her face against his shoulder, whispering words in her own tongue, words of hope she had not spoken in years. She did not know if he understood, but he held her tighter, as if promising that he would not let her go. Finally, they reached a heavy door at the end of the hall. The human slammed his hand against a panel. Sparks flew. The door creaked and began to slide open, revealing a darker passage beyond. He glanced at her, his visor glowing in the flashing lights. "This way," he said. The girl nodded, her voice trembling but steady. "I will follow." And with that, they stepped into the unknown, leaving the chamber of fear behind. But the danger was far from over. The hunt had only just begun. The door slid shut behind them with a heavy clang. The alien girl leaned against the cold wall, her chest rising and falling as if every breath might be her last. The human stood beside her, his rifle raised, visor glowing faintly in the red emergency lights. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence filled only with distant echoes of shouts and weapons fire. The corridor ahead stretched like an endless tunnel, lined with pipes that leaked steam, flickering lights and scattered debris from the blasts that shook the facility. The air was hot and smelled of smoke. Each step forward sounded too loud, too sharp, and the girl's heart thudded with every echo. "Stay close," the human said again, his voice steady but urgent. She nodded, forcing her legs to move, though they felt heavy as stone. The floor trembled under their feet. Somewhere, above, a deep explosion rumbled, shaking dust loose from the ceiling. The girl winced, clutching her arms. The human's eyes scanned every shadow. His weapon never lowered. Every movement was sharp, trained, precise. He was no stranger to danger. That much was clear. But she could not understand why he risked so much for her. She was a stranger, just a prisoner. Yet here he was, guiding her as if her life meant everything. They turned a corner and the corridor widened. For a moment it felt like relief, but the girl's breath caught in her throat. Ahead, the path was blocked by a squad of alien guards. Their armored bodies gleamed in the flashing lights. Their eyes glowed with hunger and cruelty. Weapons lifted. They hissed in unison. The human did not stop. He shifted slightly, pushing the girl behind him, his weapon raised, his shoulders squared. "When I say run, you run," he whispered. The girl's hands trembled as she clutched at his arm. "But you can't fight them all," she whispered back. Her voice broke on the words. He did not answer with words. His silence was enough. It told her he had no doubt. The guards roared and fired first. Energy blasts screamed down the corridor. The human moved instantly, pulling the girl into a crouch behind a broken piece of wall. Sparks flew as shots slammed into the metal. The air burned with heat and smoke. The girl pressed her head down, her body shaking. Then the human rose, his weapon barked, bursts of light cutting through the smoke. One guard fell, then another. His aim was precise, each shot placed with deadly calm, but the aliens kept coming, filling the corridor with their snarls. "Run," he shouted. The girl did not hesitate. She stumbled to her feet and darted down the side of the corridor, her heart hammering. The floor shook under her weak legs. Behind her, the sound of battle raged. The human's weapon thundered. Alien voices screamed in pain. She risked one glance back and her breath caught. He was a storm, moving between fire and shadow, never faltering, never letting the aliens break through. But more guards poured in from another passage. The girl gasped. "Behind. You!" she screamed. He turned sharply, his visor flashing in the dim light. He saw them, but there were too many. For a moment, the girl's chest froze. Was this where it ended? He threw a small device down the corridor. A flash of white light filled the air. The alien shrieked, blinded, stumbling. The human grabbed her arm and pulled her forward. "Move," he shouted. Together they ran, his steps heavy but steady, her own clumsy but desperate. The corridor twisted again, pipes hissed overhead, shadows stretched long and sharp in the flashing red light. The girl's lungs burned, her body begged to stop, but the human's grip dragged her onward. He would not let her fall, he would not let her stop. They turned another corner, only to find a sealed door. The girl froze, panic rising again. "No, no, it's closed," she cried. The human slammed his armored fist into the control panel. Sparks erupted, but the door did not move. He cursed under his breath, yanked a tool from his belt, and began slicing through the wires. Behind them, the sound of pursuit grew, louder. Alien roars filled the air, footsteps pounding closer. The girl's throat tightened, her eyes watered as fear washed over her again. "They're coming," she whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. "Then they'll find us." "Gone," the human replied, his voice sharp, filled with steel. The panel sparked again. Then the door groaned, sliding open just enough to slip through. He shoved her inside, followed quickly, and slammed it closed behind them. The new corridor was darker, narrower. Steam poured from the vents. Lights flickered. Weakly overhead, the girl leaned against the wall, gasping. Why do you fight for me?" she asked. Her words echoed in the tight space, fragile and small. The human paused, staring ahead into the darkness. For a moment she thought he would not answer. Then his voice came, quiet but firm. "Because someone has to." Her breath trembled. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust. And for the first time in years, something inside her, something buried deep, began to stir. But before she could speak again, the wall shook with another blast. Dust fell from above. The human raised his weapon once more. "We're not safe yet," he said. The girl straightened. Her fear still heavy, but her legs steadier now. Together, they stepped deeper into the shadows of the escape corridor. The escape corridor ended in a wide hall, larger than any passage they had seen so far. The ceiling arched high above, lined with glowing alien symbols that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air smelled of metal and burning fuel. The alien girl slowed, her chest rising and falling, fear curling inside her like a knot. The human stepped forward first, scanning the shadows with his weapon raised. His armor was scratched and blackened, smoke stains marking where enemy fire had struck. Yet his stance remained strong, steady. His presence filled the space like an unshakable wall. The girl clutched her arms close, her silver hair falling around her face. She whispered in a trembling voice, "Something waits here." She felt it in her skin. In the strange glow of the alien markings, the human gave a short nod. "I know," he replied, his voice low but firm. A sudden hiss broke the silence. Dark shapes emerged from both sides of the hall. Alien guards, more heavily armed than before, their weapons glowed with sharp red light, their eyes shining with hunger. They moved in unison. Surrounding the pair in a wide circle, the girl's breath caught in her throat. The human shifted, pulling her gently behind him. His weapon lifted. "Stay low," he commanded. The girl obeyed, crouching near the wall. Her body trembled, but her eyes never left him. She had seen him fight before, but now there were too many. She wondered if even he could survive this. The first shot cracked through the air. A searing beam slammed into the wall beside them, scattering sparks across the floor. Then all at once the hall erupted into chaos. Fire filled the space, the sound of weapons echoed like thunder. The human moved like lightning, his rifle roared, sending burst after burst into the enemy line. One alien dropped, another fell screaming, but more pushed forward, closing the circle, tighter. The girl covered her head, the air around her thick with smoke and sparks. An alien charged, massive and snarling, its blade raised high. The human spun, meeting the strike with his armored arm. The blade screeched across his gauntlet. He shoved the creature back and fired point-blank into its chest. The alien collapsed, its roar fading into silence. The girl gasped, her hands gripping the cold floor. She had never seen anyone fight like this. Her captors had always seemed unstoppable. But this human, he met them with no fear. His body moved with purpose, as if every strike, every shot was guided by something greater than himself. But the numbers pressed harder. Beams of red fire streaked across the hall. One blast caught the human on the side. His armor sparked, the force knocking him down. The girl cried out, crawling toward him. Her voice broke with fear. "No!" The human gritted his teeth, forcing himself back to his feet. He pushed her aside with one arm. "Stay back," he barked. His visor glowed in the smoke as he raised his weapon again. The aliens roared and charged, but the human was faster. His rifle spat fire. His arms swung with brutal strikes. The hall became a storm of light and sound. Metal rang with every shot, every scream. The girl's tears blurred her vision, but through the smoke she saw it. The human standing tall, even his wounds marked. His armor. His movement slower now, heavier, yet he did not falter. He shielded her body with his own, every shot angled to keep her safe. One alien broke through the smoke, its claws reaching for her, she screamed. But before the claws could touch her, the human was there. His blade flashed, slicing across the creature's chest. It fell at her feet, blood steaming on the floor. She stared up at him, her lips trembling. "Why do you risk everything?" she asked through tears. The human did not look at her. His weapon fired again, his voice hard. "Because no one else will." The hall fell silent piece by piece. The last alien dropped to the floor, the glow fading from its eyes, smoke coiled upward from scorched walls. The human lowered his weapon slowly. His chest rose and fell in heavy breaths. The girl crawled closer, her hands reaching for him. She touched the cracks in his armor where blood leaked through. Her voice shook. "You're hurt." He turned his visor toward her, his breathing rough. "It doesn't matter," he said. "You're safe for now." The girl's heart pounded. She could not understand this human. She had been nothing but a prisoner, yet he fought for her like she was worth more than his own life. She pressed her hands harder against his wound. "Don't say it doesn't matter," she whispered. "It matters to me." For the first time, the human was silent. His visor hid his eyes, but she felt his gaze linger on her. In that silence, surrounded by smoke and ruin, something passed between them, something more powerful than fear. But their moment did not last. A distant alarm wailed again, louder, sharper than before. Reinforcements were coming. The human pulled away from her touch and pushed himself up. His voice rough, but strong. "We move." The girl rose with him, her legs shaking but steadier than before. Together they stepped over the fallen bodies deeper into the hall. Beyond the smoke waited more danger, more fire, but neither of them looked back. The corridor beyond the hall was narrow and dim. Steam hissed from broken pipes, casting white mist into the air. The alien girl followed close behind the human, her silver hair sticking to her damp face. Her heart still raced from the battle they had barely survived. The human walked slower now. His steps were heavy, his breathing rough. His armor was dented, scratched and stained with blood. The girl's eyes kept returning to the wound on his side where red liquid seeped through the cracks. Each step he took left a faint smear along the wall when his shoulder brushed against it. "You're hurt," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but he did not turn. He only shook his head. "Not important," he said in a rough tone. But she knew it was. She could see the strain in the way he moved, the way his hand pressed against the wound when he thought she was not looking. They reached a small junction where dim light flickered from above. The human leaned briefly against the wall, his rifle lowered, his visor tilted down as if his strength was failing. The girl stepped closer, her hands trembling. Why would you fight so hard for me?" she asked. For a moment, silence filled the air. Only the soft hiss of steam broke it. Then he spoke. "Because no one deserves what they were going to do to you." His voice was calm but carried weight. "Not you. Not anyone." The girl's chest tightened. No one from her own kind had tried to help her. Not a single voice had stood for her. Yet this stranger, a human, carried wounds for her sake. She felt her throat ache with emotions she could not name. "You don't even know me," she whispered. Her eyes stung with tears. "I am nothing to you." The human turned his head slightly. The visor reflected her face, silver hair clinging to her skin, fear still in her wide eyes. "You are not nothing," he said firmly. "You are alive. That is enough." Her lips parted, but no words came. She felt her chest fill with warmth she did not understand. For so long she had been treated like an object, a prisoner, something to be used. Now someone looked at her and saw something else. Someone worth saving. The human straightened with effort, pushing off the wall. "We can't stay here," he said, his voice low but steady again. He motioned for her to follow. She nodded quickly, wiping her tears with shaky hands as they moved forward. She stayed close. Her eyes studied every detail of him, the way his armor glowed faintly at the edges, the way he moved despite his pain. She felt safer near him, even though danger surrounded them. They turned into another corridor, this one lined with storage crates. The human slowed, scanning carefully. He raised his hand for her to stop. The girl froze, pressing herself against the wall, her breath shallow. He crouched near one of the crates, listening. The sound of alien voices carried faintly through the vents, harsh and guttural. They were searching, hunting. The girl shivered, her heart leaping into her throat. The human turned back to her, whispering through his visor. "They will not stop. They want you back, but I will not let them." The words struck her deeply. She stepped closer, whispering back, "Why does it matter to you so much?" Her voice cracked, almost pleading for an answer. His visor tilted down. For a long moment, he was silent. Then finally he said, "Because I know what it means to be powerless." His words were soft but heavy. "I will not let you feel that again." The girl's eyes widened. Her heart thudded. In that single moment, she saw more than a soldier. She saw someone who carried scars she could not see, someone who understood her pain. She wanted to ask more, but the sound of heavy footsteps cut the moment short. The human raised his weapon, his body tense again. He motioned for her to move behind a crate. She obeyed quickly, crouching low. Her hands shook as she covered her mouth to silence her breathing. The footsteps grew louder, closer. The human crouched low beside her. His presence pressed against hers. His armor brushed her shoulder. She could hear his steady breath, strong and calm. It gave her courage. 2 alien guards passed through the corridor, their weapons glowing faintly. They scanned the area but did not notice the pair hiding in the shadows. The girl's body ached with the effort of staying silent. Her heart felt like it would burst. She feared they would hear it. The human stayed still, his weapon ready, his eyes locked on them through the visor. The tension stretched like a wire ready to snap. Finally, the guards moved on, their voices fading into the distance. The girl exhaled slowly, her chest trembling. She turned her head toward him, whispering, "You saved me again." He shook his head, his voice low. "Not yet. We still have far to go." But in her eyes, something had already changed. She no longer saw him as only a warrior. She saw him as something more, a protector, a shield, perhaps even a hope she had long forgotten. And as they rose from the shadows to continue their escape, the girl stayed closer than before. For the first time in her life, she felt trust, growing inside her heart, fragile but real. Trust in a stranger, trust in a human. The corridors grew darker the further they went. The air was heavy with smoke, the red glow of alarms casting everything in a sickly light. The alien girl followed close behind the human, her breath sharp, her heart pounding. She could hear the distant roars of her captors echoing through the metal halls. They were hunting, drawing closer with every step. The human walked with determination. Though his body showed the weight of battle, his side bled through the cracked armor, but he never slowed. His weapon was always raised, his head turning sharply at every sound. The girl's eyes followed him, torn between awe and worry. She had never seen someone fight with such strength, nor suffer with such silence. Suddenly, the wall shook. A deep vibration rumbled through the floor. The girl stumbled and grabbed his arm. Her silver hair fell across her face, her glowing blue skin flickering with fear. "What was that?" she whispered. The human glanced upward, his visor glowing faintly in the dark. "They released something," he answered grimly. From the shadows ahead came a new sound. Not boots, not weapons, but a guttural growl that rattled the air. The girl froze, her breath caught. She had heard that sound once before. It was the cry of the war beasts, monstrous creatures bred for battle. Her knees weakened, memories of their brutality flashing in her mind. "We cannot fight those," she whispered, her voice breaking. The human did not flinch. He adjusted his grip on the rifle, his voice steady. "We don't have to fight all of them. We only need to survive long enough to escape." The growl grew louder, followed by heavy footsteps that shook the ground. Out of the smoke stepped a massive beast, its skin armored in dark scales, eyes glowing like fire, saliva dripping from its jaws. Chains hung loosely around its neck as if it had been unleashed only moments ago. It sniffed the air and let out a roar that echoed through the corridor. The girl gasped and stumbled back, her back pressing against the wall. Her entire body trembled. The human moved in front of her, his figure small compared to the monster. Yet his stance was steady. The beast charged, the corridor shook with its weight, the girl screamed, but the human stood firm. He opened fire, the rifle blazing in bursts of light. Bolts of energy struck the beast's chest, leaving smoking burns, but it did not slow. At the last second, he shoved the girl aside and rolled to the left. The beast slammed into the wall, metal bending under its power. Sparks rained down from the ceiling. The girl scrambled to her feet, watching in horror as the human stood again, weapon raised. The beast swung its claws. The human dodged, barely, sparks flying as the strike grazed his armor. He fired again, aiming for the glowing eyes. The beast roared in pain, thrashing wildly. Its tail swept across the floor, smashing crates and slamming the human back into the wall. His body hit hard, his armor cracking further. The girl's cry filled the corridor. She rushed to him, dropping to her knees. Her hands shook as she tried to help him rise. "You cannot fight this alone," she cried. Tears streaked her face, glowing faintly in the red light. The human forced himself up, blood staining his side. "I don't have a choice," he said, his voice rough but unyielding. He pulled her behind him again, raising his weapon. His every breath was heavy, but his eyes, hidden behind the visor, burned with determination. The beast roared again, charging once more. This time the human planted his feet, waiting. At the last moment he fired a grenade round from his weapon. The blast lit the corridor in a white flash. The beast's head snapped back, its body crashing into the floor with a thunderous roar. Smoke and fire filled the air. The girl stared in shock, her body shaking. The human leaned against the wall, his rifle lowered, his chest heaved. His wound bled freely now. Yet he had stood against something she thought no one could defeat. Before she could speak, another roar echoed, this one closer, sharper. The girl's heart sank. "There are more," she whispered. Her fear returned, stronger than before. The human nodded grimly. "Then we keep moving," he said. He grabbed her hand, pulling her forward. Together they ran down the corridor, the echoes of pursuit chasing them. The walls trembled as more beasts roared behind them. The girl's lungs burned, her legs weak, but she did not let go of his hand. His grip was strong, unbreakable, pulling her forward. When she stumbled, they burst into a wide chamber, the hangar, filled with alien ships lined in rows. The air smelled of fuel and smoke. Lights flashed wildly, warning alarms blaring. The girl gasped. "Escape ships," she whispered. Hope flickered in her chest for the first time. The human scanned the hangar, spotting one craft smaller than the others, fast enough to break through. He pointed. "There," he said firmly. Together they ran, but behind them, the beasts entered the hangar. Their roars shaking the metal walls, the girl cried out, her body trembling. She clutched his arm as the monsters advanced, towering shadows in the red glow. The human raised his weapon, his voice sharp and unwavering. "Go, run to the ship." She froze, her tears falling. "Not without you," she said. Her voice shook, but it carried strength. The human turned his head toward her, silent for a moment. Then he nodded once. "Then we go together." And with the beasts charging, the alarms screaming, and fire raining from above, the two of them sprinted toward the only chance of freedom. The hangar shook as the beasts charged forward. Their roars echoed off the metal walls, shaking the floor beneath. The human and the alien girl, sparks rained down from broken lights. Fires burned across the chamber. Alarms screamed like sirens of doom. The human pulled her forward, his grip unshakable. Together they ran across the open floor, weaving between crates and broken machinery. The alien girl's breaths came fast, every step heavy, but she did not let go. Behind them, the sound of claws scraping metal grew louder, closer. "There!" the human shouted, pointing toward a small alien craft. Its sleek body glowed faintly under the flashing lights. Unlike the larger warships, this one looked fast, sharp, built for speed rather than power. If they could reach it, they had a chance. The beasts roared, charging across the hangar. Massive shadows leapt over crates, glowing eyes locked onto their prey. The girl stumbled, fear tightening her chest, but the human lifted her without slowing, carrying her against his chest. His armor clanked with every stride, his body trembling from his wounds. Yet his pace never faltered. Blasts of alien fire rained down from the upper platforms where guards had gathered. The human spun, firing his rifle upward. His shot struck true, scattering the guards. Their bodies fell, smoke trailing. But each shot cost him. His weapon overheated, and his movements grew heavier. The ship loomed closer, its hatch glowing faintly. The girl's hope flared. She clung to him, whispering in her own tongue, prayers she thought she had forgotten. For the first time, they did not sound empty. One of the beasts leapt, its claws, slamming down near them. Metal screeched as the floor cracked. The human shoved her aside, rolling as the monster's jaws snapped where his head had been. He raised his weapon and fired. A burst of light struck the beast's eye. It screamed, thrashing wildly. The girl crawled toward him, reaching with trembling hands. "You can't fight them all," she cried, her voice broke with desperation. The human rose again, his chest heaving, his visor turned to her. "I don't need to fight them all," he said, his voice steady. "I only need to get you out." He grabbed her hand again, pulling her forward. Together they reached the ship's hatch. He slammed his hand on the panel, sparks lit as the door slid open. The girl stumbled inside, turning back for him. But he remained outside, weapon raised, firing at the approaching beasts. Tears spilled. "Come inside," she shouted. "You'll die out there." The human fired another burst, stepping back slowly toward the hatch. His visor glowed faintly in the red light. He was bloodied, his armor cracked, but his stance was unbroken. He turned his head toward her and spoke in a voice filled with iron. "Not until you're safe." The beasts charged again, claws tearing the floor. The human threw one last explosive device. The blast shook the hangar, throwing dust and fire into the air. In that chaos, he leapt back inside the ship, slamming his hand on the panel. The hatch sealed shut, locking out the roaring monsters. The girl fell into him, her body trembling. She clutched his chest, sobbing. I thought you would not make it." His voice came rough but steady. "We're not free yet." He staggered to the pilot's seat, his blood staining the controls. The girl stared, confused. "You know how to fly this?" she asked. Her voice, small but full of hope. He gave a faint nod. "I've studied their ships," he said. His hands moved across the glowing panels with precision. The engines roared, the floor shook, the ship lifted from the ground. Outside, the beasts leapt against the hull, claws screeching. Guards fired from the platforms. But the engines flared, brighter, flames bursting from beneath. The ship shot upward, smashing through the hangar roof. Metal shattered, sparks flew, and suddenly they were in the open sky. The girl pressed her face to the window, gasping. The stars stretched above, endless and free. Her eyes glowed with tears. "We're out," she whispered. Her voice shook. "We're free." The human sat back, his breaths heavy, his visor cracked, revealing his eyes for the first time. They were tired, but filled with fire. He glanced at her. "We bought time, but they will follow." She turned to him, her voice soft but strong. Then, "I will follow you wherever you go." Her words silenced him. For the first time he saw not fear in her eyes, but trust. Trust so deep it burned brighter than the stars outside. The ship shot into the darkness of space, leaving the broken world behind. The alarms, the screams, the chains, all fading into the distance. The alien girl leaned closer, her voice trembling. "I was nothing but a prisoner," she whispered, "but now, because of you, I am alive." The human's eyes stayed fixed on the stars, his jaw set. No, he said quietly. You are more than alive. You are free. And with those words, the ship vanished into hyperspace, carrying them both toward a future neither could have imagined, a future born not from chains but from trust, courage, and a bond stronger than fear.